Hello again. My name is Stefan Senna. This is my channel, The Coherence Path. All paths lead to you. If I can talk. Um, but you might also be seeing this video on my other channel, What Was Seen. Just depends on what I decide to talk about. What Was Seen, that channel is about unusual circumstances that have happened to me in my life. And then once I'm done with the ones I've gone through, I'm going to take historical occurrences that have like verifiable witnesses and stuff at the time, and talk about those and how I think it's affecting consciousness and so forth. It's funny, the shadow of my arm, this side, is lining up with the shadow of the tree right there. I don't know if you can tell of the background. And for a second, I thought the screen was divided. It's a very funny optical illusion. But anyway, at least that's what I see on the phone. But this channel, The Coherence Path, All Roads Lead to You. I talk about consciousness and just everyday things about life, how we look at life, how we can interpret life and the meanings we put on things that we experience, and how we go about using our logic or intuition or emotion to interpret those things or to integrate them to create for belief systems we have or outlooks that we might have. And and the additional thing on this channel I'm going to start sharing more is my paintings. So I'm going to take my paintings one at a time and just have a video about what I experienced before and after I painted the painting. Then I'm going to create videos where it's just the image itself filling the whole screen. There will be an introduction, like meditation sort of thing you can use if you want. And then to just let a person stare at an image and see if they find some meaning in it, or reminds them of something, or something that just comes to your own consciousness during it. That's what I've done with all my paintings since my out-of-body, near-death experience, whatever you want to call it. When I was told to paint, I'll sit down with the paintings one at a time and be open to how it alters my consciousness. So I'm out here outside of Happy Valley, outside of Estacada, Oregon. This is the highway, I guess they call it the Bigfoot Highway. I was fishing here the other day, and a boulder went, let's see, probably about at least, probably I'm guessing 1,500 to 2,000 feet above me on the hillside. I just heard a loud rustling sound, and then I saw some small debris come down, and then this boulder, it was kind of a square, it was more of a square shape, but it was probably 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot, like a cube, and it just rolled down the hill here. Now I don't know what would cause the boulder to roll down. Some people who have seen Bigfoot out here, they said, well, they like to throw rocks and stuff like that. Well, that was definitely a big rock. It went in the river across from me. I've seen a Bigfoot, and I have a video on that. But yeah, I don't know if when I was fishing here last time, if a Bigfoot rolled a rock at me, or I just happened to be here when a boulder decided to come down the hill. But it wasn't round, it was kind of a square-shaped boulder, so it's kind of, I'm trying to imagine how that would happen, but I'm sure that stuff happens all the time. It's called nature, right? But I've fished here a few times. I haven't caught anything, haven't had any bites, but I did get some feedback from some people fishing, and they said that they were doing these certain things. So I'm just going to try it. I'm going to try it with a plain lure to begin with. It's just beautiful right through here. Trying to get out of your way here, but it's just a beautiful. You know, the film doesn't show it, but it's just a beautiful area out here. It's really peaceful. I like being in the shade. I'm not real big on standing out in the sun. So, but I'll cast my line here. See what happens. Was it Forrest Gump said, you know, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I think fishing's that, you know, has some similarities. Like I just caught a tree branch, or a shrub branch, and then it let loose and I caught another one. So see, that was quite interesting. I might want to go this other way like I was the other day. Let's see what happens. But I guess in this river, I was talking to those people fishing, there's trout, then there's seasonal steelhead. I caught a rock there. They said there might be catfish, at least in the reservoir farther down. There might be some, you know, some other types of fish, like maybe some smallmouth bass, or I don't know, crappie. I'm not sure. When I was a kid, and it's still the same way, I never really cared what I caught. I just thought it was fun to catch a fish. I would say that the funnest fish to catch, if you decide to try fishing, it's never too late. Obviously, it's not a big skill. Doesn't require a lot of skill. You know, if you decide to start fishing, just keep it simple. You know, go out and have fun. But some people take it very seriously, and I guess they'd be called sportsmen. But I guess just a recreational fisher person. I thought today I would start a little bit of a conversation about creativity. I have another video I put up. It was on creativity, but I knew that wasn't going to be the only one, because creativity is pretty vast as far as the things you could talk about. Now, for me, creativity, and I just caught another rock. Creativity for me, when I was a kid, at least I thought what creativity was to, well, just, you know, copy what somebody else has done, or a photograph. Like maybe you want to draw a deer, you just look in a book, find a good photograph, or somebody else's drawing or painting, and just copy it. And the other day I was working at my job, and this kid pulled up on his bike. He's probably about, I don't know. It's funny, when I was younger I could guess people's ages, but now it's like, I don't know if that kid was 13 or 10. I have no idea. But anyway, he pulled up on his bike at the end of the driveway of my client's property, and he struck up a conversation with me. So I thought, okay, well, let's have a conversation. So we had a conversation about what is intelligence. Because one of the things he offered was that he was going to go to, well, he asked me if I'd gone to Harvard or Yale. And just to qualify his question a little bit and play around, I said, what is Harvard or Yale? And he said, oh, it's a college. And I said, oh, okay, I think I've heard of that. And I said, no, I didn't go to Harvard or Yale. And he thought maybe that I had because I could work on a house and fix things. He thought I must have gone to some college, and those were the two colleges he was aware of. Um, and I said, no, I didn't have to go to college to learn this. I just taught myself. And so anyway, the conversation got to be around the topic of what is intelligence. And, I asked him, like, do you think intelligence comes from learning information? Like, if you go to school or you read a book and you learn information, do you think that that is intelligence? And he thought so, and I agreed that yes, that's part of intelligence. It's called knowledge. But I said, as we got deeper into it, we began to talk about what about things that are obviously intelligent, but we don't learn from some source. And I gave him the example of before we had a television, most people just listened to a radio in a house. The whole family would gather around and listen to the radio, but somebody had the idea that, gosh, if you could just put a picture to the radio, it'd be more meaningful. And of course, they were right. It's more meaningful to see when things are happening than just listening. And I mentioned to him, I said, do you think that somebody with really high education and intelligence invented the TV? And he said, yes. And I said, well, what if I tell you that he was a boy about your age, maybe a little older, that lived on a farm, that as far as I remember, the boy got onto a ladder and looked out over the cornfield, and in those moments, he understood how to create a television set. Because at that time, I think it was Alexander Graham Bell and the rest of them, they couldn't figure out how to make a television set. How do you make the picture move, How do you transmute it from a video camera or camcorder, whatever the heck they called them back then, to television? Which, in the end took a lot of experimentation, but the boy, when he had his idea or his vision, he wrote it down, and in the end, I believe, if I remember the story correctly, he and his father took the idea to, might have been Alexander Graham Bell, I'm not sure, I don't want to sully his name, but he took it to somebody and they said, well, you're just a farm boy, what do you know? And then they turned around and copied basically the intellectual property of the kid, and they made a television. Now, this story is a general story. I think that's the idea of what happened, because I don't remember specifically. But that's generally what I heard happened, because the boy eventually took whoever took his idea to court, and later won the patent on the television. Of course, by then the other companies or whatever had made a ton of money off of it and so forth. That's how it goes sometimes. Now I have a nice knot in my line. Now I have taken knot tying class, and this is a very special knot. It's called the knot while you're fishing that you don't want to have happen. That's the official title of this knot. It's also known as a crap knot while you're fishing. Oh crap, I got that one of those knots again. It's a little humor there for you. But anyway, so we talked about how intelligence sometimes doesn't come from learning a specific thing or skill. Sometimes intelligence seems to just pop out of nowhere, and it's quite the interesting thing that happens. And so that's where we sort of left off, but I'll pick up from there today, and that is a discussion about creativity. So when I was a kid, I thought creativity was, well, you just look around and see what other artists have done or are doing, and you just maybe put your own spin on it. And that is being creative, because you look to see how somebody else drew a basket or made a basket, and you just make a basket, but you design it, different. And that is certainly creativity. Just like you can look at a car and come up with your own design of a car. That's totally permitted, right? And but what stumped me growing up was once I copied all the photographs that I could possibly copy, once I copied all the artists that I admired, I could possibly copy, because I was copying, wildlife images from Clark Bronson, or Clark Bronston, or anyway, he's an exceptional wildlife artist. His charcoal drawings and pencil drawings are just incredible. Plus his sculptures, his bronze sculptures they just have an emotional, this sort of spiritual quality about them. He really captures the majesty of the animals. But so I copied a bunch of his stuff, and then I moved on to Charles Russell, because my parents were heavily into Western art. So I thought, oh gosh, I want to impress my parents, so I will. Oops, I got the hook on myself. I will copy him. That's awesome, because that's being creative. And then let's see, I want to make sure I do this right, not backwards. All right. So I copied a bunch of his let's see if I can put this over here. Bunch of his illustrations. Copied the way he did cowboys and horses and cattle and buffalo and deer and elk and all these other things. Oh wow, that's pretty cool. Now my parents will be impressed, because now I can do the art that they like. Well, about that time, I noticed a couple things. My parents had too much going on to really pay attention to too much to what I was doing or trying to accomplish with my art. So that reward really never, that I was wanting, never really sort of solidified, other than a nod, like, oh, that's nice. Of course, what they were just communicating was that, well, yeah, you copied it, great, good skills. What was I going to say? But I got bored with Charles M. Russell, so I went on to Remington, and then about that time, my parents were getting divorced, and I moved out on my own when I was 15. After my bout of levitation, that was interesting. I shot a video about that. And then, as you get older, it's really hard to put the fishing line through that little hoop. When I was a kid, it was like, yeah, no problem, I'll do it for you, Grandpa. Now I'm like, Grandpa, and there's no little kid around to do it. But failed at that one. So anyway, then I moved out on my own, and I started doing science fiction art. I admired. I was always into like dinosaurs and stuff like that. But then I started reading books like about Conan the Barbarian and Tarzan and all that stuff. And so then, of course, I found the what I thought was the most talented science fiction illustrator, Frank Frazetta, and I decided, well, geez, that guy's got a successful life doing this. I could do that. So I'll tell you, I'm glad I'm not timing myself because I guess I'm not very good at tying knots. My teenager, well, they're about to turn 20. They're really good with knots. But they don't like fishing because they don't like hurting the fish, which I understand. I don't like hurting the fish either. Yeah, I think this knot is okay for like a up to a 2-pound trout, maybe. After that, they're gonna break the line or break the knot. But I don't care. If that's a 10-pound fish, he gets away with my lure. That's perfectly all right. So anyway, I started copying Frank Frazetta, and then I moved on to Boris Vallejo and probably a couple others. But those are the main two. But I really like Frank Frazetta because his art was not only obviously science fiction and fantasy, but there was a lot of emotion in his work. And I lacked that. I didn't have any of that, so I admired it. And part of this information is on my near-death experience about, my evolution of, leaving behind art and then the universe telling me to do it. But what happened was, because I was just copying other artists, thinking that was creative, rearranging their compositions and all that stuff, at some point, I got bored again. I got bored of Frank Frazetta. I didn't get bored of looking at his art. I got bored of trying to make my own because mine never even matched up to it. I won, I think, every first place in a state art show my last year of high school. And one of the guys said, "Oh, we'll give you a four-year free scholarship to go to New York. You're the next Frank Frazetta." And that should have been bad news to me at that time, because it should have been an insult, because I wasn't my own person. But I thought, oh, that's cool, but I never, of course, took him up on it. I instead went another direction, didn't go to college at that time, especially not for art. But now, I have this interesting thing that happened to me, that now, when I want to paint something, I just ask, what should I paint? And I'll get an image that comes in my mind, and then I'll paint it out, and it turns out that nobody's really ever painted a painting exactly like that. And so it's just an interpretation of my own consciousness for that moment, just like a dream is. Now, John Denver, when he would take a shower, he got some of his number one hits while he was taking a shower. So where did his creativity come from? And like me, when I say, what do I paint? And I get an image and a visionary experience that I paint, where did that come from? It wasn't in my mind before. It wasn't in my brain before. It's not anything that I particularly experienced before that moment. And I think, was it Beethoven? Was he the one that was deaf? But he got all this music just like flowed through his mind when he was, I don't know, whatever he's doing, writing or playing piano. I'm not sure when it came, but this sort of stuff happens all the time. It's not anything new. I'm not telling you anything new. But what I am trying to share is that when we're wanting to be creative, I think the biggest engine of creativity is when our mind is able to relax and let go, and we are open to influence. I'm sure that, Steve Jobs, when he was alive, or, some other inventor, um, those ideas came to those individuals not because they were sitting there concentrating really hard. I'm going to come up with a great idea. I'm going to come up with a great idea. I'm going to come up with a great idea. I don't think that was happening. Now, I have some friends in this little container. I have had some short conversations with these guys. Sharing with them my gratitude for their cooperation in helping me fish. They're called worms. I know it's a painful experience they're going through. I'm not sure how many hearts. Somebody told me that worms have like 10 hearts or something. I don't know. It's weird that you can, divide them, and then because this is like the other half of one I used before, and it seems to be doing fine. I don't think I'd do very well. Just see my torso walking around and the rest of me going somewhere else. I don't know. Guess you see those in horror movies, but they're not really true. But worms, they're a lot different than us. And that consciousness that we tap into, whether it's a meditation or just a flash of a moment or in a dream, or we're driving somewhere and we're just relaxed, and we might even be listening to music, and then some idea comes to us that ends up shifting our entire life in another direction. You get some business idea like to sell candles or, create a spaceship, and your life goes a completely different way because you were open. The idea came. That's a cute little bird. And he's tweeting as he's going down the river. That must be fun. I'd love to do that. But, so those ideas can just come from anywhere. When I've tried to get whether it's a piece of paper or a canvas, and tried to create something like, I'm going to paint a landscape today. That's usually the last thing I ever tell myself. I'm going to create a landscape today. Because no matter how many times I try, I know that I'm going to end up painting over that landscape about 5 times. I'll paint one out. Oh, this is going to look great. Then I'll realize, oh, that's a stupid idea. Then I'll do it again. Go through the same process. There's nothing creative about it because I'm standing there trying to make it happen. Now, the times that I have rarely I say, created a landscape that was actually interesting, it just sort of happened. Like, I can think of right now 2 paintings of mine that, hands down, there's nothing I would change about any of them. One I painted in 15 minutes, and the other one I painted in an hour. And it just came out. And they're pretty cool landscapes, if I do say myself. But I've probably painted several hundred that ended up getting painted over because they weren't anything. They were just worthless. There's a bunch of buzzards up above me. They're probably thinking that I'm going to catch a really big fish. I'm going to gut it right here and lay the leftovers, so they're waiting for dinner. Maybe they're intuitive buzzards, knowing that I'm going to catch the big one that got away from somebody. But anyway, so creativity, I think for the most part, and I'm open to discuss the matter. Oh, there went a duck. That was a cool looking duck. I guess all ducks are cool looking, but that one just was flying spectacularly well. Let's see, how long are we on time? Oh, we're at 30 minutes. You're probably bored with me already. So anyway, that's my little conversation today on this video about creativity. It's something that we tap into for the most part, I think, that naturally has a way of having all the right ingredients. So what's essential? Probably getting rid of distractions. That's one thing. Another thing is probably being able to relax, so your body physically just relaxes. Maybe your breath slows down. Maybe make sure the environment is nice. Like if you're a painter, maybe you want the curtains drawn, or you want the curtains open, or you want your nice little cup of tea or coffee, or some cookies or snacks. Wearing your favorite pajamas. Who knows? Might want to hear some drum music. I'm not sure. But it's up to you. So I encourage you to have fun with creativity. If you don't feel like it's happening, don't force it. But just have the intention. It would be fun. Maybe try the intention. It would be fun to try something creative, or it would be fun to work on a little project that was my own, or something like that. And then just let it go, and, you know, in due time, you have little sessions of relaxation. It might come to you. Now, I think I just caught a 50-pounder, but it just, went off. It was on there for just a second. I gave it a wink. It gave me a wink, and it's good to know it's out there. Yeah, but it was nice. It didn't eat my worm. So that's it for this video. Subscribe if you like. I appreciate it. It kind of confirms that, well, maybe something I have to say on one of these videos is worth listening to, or at least entertaining. And I'll just see you on the next video, either on this channel, The Coherence Path, All Roads Lead to You, or the other one, What Was Seen. If you have an unusual circumstance that happened, send me an email. Maybe we can do an interview, or either over the phone, or video, or in person if you live locally. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time with the big 50-pounder I caught. You never know.